Welcome back to the P.I Show. Harry Nowicki here with Tony Carbone. We're common law lawyers. We're talking about injuries, damages in Victoria. Any queries, write into our website, which will be at the end of this show. Tony, another case that came before the courts recently was someone who was camping in Echuca, and one night, I think it was Boxing Day 2002, a branch from a red gum fell on the camp site, injured his head, and he suffered some brain damage. He sued Parks Victoria and went before the courts, and a judge found that Parks Victoria were liable and awarded damages, which was, I think, the single biggest damages claim in Victoria of $6 million. Most of that is regarding medical expenses, past and future. I think it's 39-year-old, and there's some compensation for pain and suffering, and there's compensation for past and future financial loss as well. But out of the $6 million, probably $5 million plus is for medical expenses ongoing. So that's a significant claim. When I looked at the case, well, when I looked at the judgment, I thought it was a difficult case. He'd camped there for 20 years. He knew the area, and it was almost like an act of God. The red gum branch fell on the camp by accident, if you like. What did Parks Victoria do wrong?
Well, in any case, at common law, there's two questions. The first one is fault, and the second one is how much. If you don't get past the first question of fault, which you correctly highlighted, you can't get to the second question of how much. What they did wrong in this case is that there was a report commissioned by Parks Victoria sometime before the incident, and there was recommendations made about how they should educate their rangers, about signage and all sorts of things, which recommendations were never carried out. And the judge was scathing of Parks Victoria on that issue there. So the fact that they commissioned a report and didn't implement the recommendations weighed heavily against them.
So they knew there was some danger and some risk. It's a question of maintenance and partly a question of resources
and education,
partly education.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I suppose if you commission a report and don't follow any of its recommendations, then you're exposed.
Well, I mean, the average person, including myself, wouldn't have known that a red gum branch, when it actually a dead branch hits the ground and bounces. Now, most people think that a branch just drops to the ground and that's it. But this actually hits the ground and bounces, and that's what happened in this case. And they knew all about that, and nothing was ever done. The rangers knew about it, but they didn't do anything to try and educate the public, or actually signage might have made a difference. You know, the signs would have said,
you shouldn't be camping underneath or in the proximity of red gums. So, and I think the other thing is people look at these verdicts of massive verdicts of, say, $6 million, and they form an impression, well, that all goes to the plaintiff, but that goes to the plaintiff in the sense of paying for all his medical expenses. So if there's brain damage and there's 24-hour care, that is expensive, and that's where most of that money goes for.
Well, what normally happens is this: the figures calculate on the basis of an expert report in terms of what's necessary for the future. So if this fellow...
And what's reasonable?
If he was to live until 70, by the time he gets to 70, the calculation is that there won't be any principal left. If he dies anywhere between... He was 37 in this case, sorry, 37 and 70, the money goes to the estate. And the estate is obviously the wife and children.
So anyway, that, you know, I thought negligence was not easy, and the lawyers for the state of Victoria, for Parks Victoria, we're not quite sure, but probably didn't make any offers, or would have made a very low offer. So they argued before the judge that there was no fault on behalf of the Parks Victoria, and the judge, after, you know, quite a lengthy trial, found otherwise. But, you know, common law, if they abolished common law, he'd have no rights at all. And again, this is what...
and then a family would suffer. The family would.
He and the family would suffer.
Yep. At least now he's got the potential to get outsiders to look after him, and chances are he's probably in a home, or.
Yeah, but look, the final case is a case where a real estate agent was murdered in a home. It was a home inspection. She'd been rung up. She went out to a home, met a potential tenant, and the tenant was deranged, murdered her. And a number of years later, the husband has sued the real estate agent. And the husband says that the real estate agent was at fault, and he is suing in the capacity as a financial dependent. She was earning money, and he and the family were dependent on her money. Now, I think it's a difficult case. I think negligence is very, very difficult.
Look, I think it is a difficult case. Since that murder in 2005, I think it was, what they've done is the REIV and the State of Victoria have implemented certain protocols in terms of what should happen when people go to home inspections and things like that. One of the things that most agents do now, Harry, is they have sign-in books. They say, the employees say, look, I'm going out, and so there's an expectation I'll be back in 30 minutes, 45 minutes. They've also removed their personal phone numbers and photos from the websites, and in some instances I think the agents get more than one person to attend an inspection. Plus they get photo ID from the actual person that's rung up asking to inspect the property.
Or maybe the tenant should have gone to the real estate agent first instead of going to the home, sight unseen.
Yep.
Look, it's a difficult claim. Common law, as you say, you need fault, and the employer might throw up their hands and say, well, look, I've done nothing wrong. It's a sad case, but the employer might say, look, I've done nothing wrong.
Well, this fellow here was obviously deranged because she was sexually assaulted as well. So
and they found the person. He's been convicted and sentenced, and he's convicted and sentenced for murder. But the husband's got a claim at common law against the real estate agent for loss of financial...
Well, the law looks at reasonable foreseeability of these incidents occurring. I think he's got a pretty good show of winning.
It'd be interesting. The case hasn't the case has just been lodged. The case hasn't been determined, and the case may settle out of court, may settle by compromise, or it may run before maybe a judge or a jury. But the common law is something that when I look at it, you look at it, the first thing that comes into our mind is fault. Whose fault was an accident? Whose fault was an injury? And they're the sort of terribly important things that the common law lawyers are very passionate about.
Well, Harry, what it does, it makes people accountable, whether it's employers, road users, people in supermarkets, doctors, etc., etc.
Well, Tony, we love talking about these cases every day of the week. We're passionate common law lawyers, and we'll be back next week. And thank you for your...
thanks, Harry, and I look forward to seeing the audience next week too.